that you are all asleep. That version was a lot longer than what I remembered. So you've had your meditation. I'm going to speak to you about no this morning.
I thought I had enough
Yeah. I want to welcome all of you that are joining us on your technology devices this morning. Welcome to the Home Center Sunday morning service. And as I just announced, I'm going to be speaking to you about no and a few other things like surrender and will this morning. What is it about the word surrender that brings one's hackles up? Okay. I'll be coming back with the message in just a few minutes.
I love you, Connie. We totally get it.
So I would like to welcome Reverend Jennifer up, who's going to give us the opening prayer first.
Do a stutter step. Do a stutter step for us.
Well, good morning. Good morning. We're working a new program here, so thank you, Connie. So I invite you to join me in our opening prayer. Creator, Father, Mother, God, we're in deep gratitude to be able to gather today in community. May we open our hearts and our minds as we listen to Reverend Connie's message, listening with curiosity. And may her words land exactly where they need to for each of us. And may we hear our own heart song. And we say this in love and light. Amen. And I'll welcome Reverend Connie back up.
I feel like we're doing this pop-up thing like a little toy. Okay. To begin again. What is it about the word surrender that brings one's hackles up and causes them to cop out an attitude of rebelliousness? Perhaps it could be said to begin with the word no, which is a very powerful word. The word means thou shalt not. Because to do such and such brings retribution and punishment down upon our being. The child first hears this word at a very young age. It's uttered by their parent or another as a warning. No, don't do that. No, don't touch that. No, you can't do that. It's the wrong thing. Don't do that. The child, upon hearing this, of course, usually either begins to cry or they throw a fit to show their displeasure at being stopped at whatever they want to do. Or they will think, this must be something really special. They don't want me to touch this. I'm not supposed to have this. So I'm just going to grab it and take off with it. Or I'm going to reach out and touch it. They know this is, of course, a forbidden object or something they are not supposed to do. To overcome these feelings, the child in turn wishes to gain control over the parent or that other person that's commanding them, that authority figure. So they imitate them by using the word no. When you give them a command like come here, the toddler or the young child instead will look at you and go no, and then run the other direction. I can remember watching this program on, I think it was the Bill Cosby show, which was about children and family. And one of the siblings had run off with her sister's hairbrush, yelling, mine. as the other one is coming after her. That's another way they deal with it. My 6-month-old son, Michael, when he was little, he was playing with Danny on a little blanket on the floor with toys, and Danny was playing with the truck. Michael took it away from him, and Danny started hollering and yelling and crying, and Michael told him, "Shut up," and banged him over the head with the truck. Well, I told him that was a no-no, that he wasn't supposed to do that. So having 2 children of my own and wanting to keep them out of harm's way as well as under my control, I did utter the no-no command emphatically many times. Often it was followed by removing the toy or the object from them and putting it out of their reach, or sending them off to their bedroom where they continued to cry or have their temper tantrum. I found that worked really well with my oldest boy, Brian. However, Michael was more of a challenge, so it took taking his cartoon programs away from him, which he dearly loved. Perhaps you can even remember incidents from your own childhood of experiencing that no. When I was about 3 or 4, I remember being punished for what was an innocent childhood curiosity with a friend. This resulted in being told I was never to do that again and being given the punishment of not being able to play with my friends all the rest of the summer. Pretty strong punishment for a 3 or 4-year-old. I can remember sitting lonely on the front steps watching the other children playing with only my doggy to keep me company. And then along come the teenage years, when the authority figure or parent really gets challenged when they tell the child no. Oftentimes, the child, or I should say the teen, or the preteen, will go to their parents and say, "I want to do this with my friends," or "I want to have this." And the parent says, "No, you can't. You can't go. You can't have that." Well, then they turn and they go to the other person, the other parent, and they tell them. And sometimes the other parent will give them permission, not knowing that the first parent said no. Or they will yell at you, "Everyone has one. I want one." Or "Everyone gets to go to that party. Why can't I?" Or "I hate you," and runs to their room, slamming the door. Is this where we first discover the free will we are promised is compromised, as we have to relate to the rules of humankind has put into place? Having mentioned earlier about my son and his rebelliousness and taking the TV away from him, let us look at entertainment. Many of us have been exposed to TV, in movies, and playing video games. That no type of behavior leads to punishment. And oftentimes, these programs present this idea in profound ugliness. The good versus the evil, the bad guy against the good guy. This even is presented in cartoons too, especially today. But what of the person who is labeled the bad guy or the bad gal? What were they feeling? Did the no of childhood set off a pattern of rebellion in them and a belief that they could cease to follow man's laws and rules without being punished, get away with it if they were clever enough? Was this a reaction to being controlled and punished harshly by others? Certainly they didn't want to surrender if it meant punishment or death. Thus you can see the word surrender which oftentimes they felt they had to do, surrender to the law or whatever, or the rule, when applied to God being in control of one's life, isn't the best idea. Especially if someone has been programmed by a religious belief system to believe they are sinful, no good for nothing, as an individual, or just as a lowly worm. This was one of Reverend Jay's stories. When he was a boy, he went to Sunday school, and the Sunday school teacher was talking to them about sin and how horrible, and that they were just like a lowly worm if they didn't follow these certain rules of behavior. Well, Jay, being a rebellious child, when the teacher went on to say, but if you be good and you are a child of God, if you be good, all things will be wonderful and you'll go to heaven and be just like me. At which Jay said, "You're just a lowly worm." Well, he got escorted out of the Sunday school and asked never to have darkened that door again. Yeah. I can remember kind of an experience having to do with church when I was about 10. I lost my mom, and I was living with my grandmother, and she lived up the street from a Baptist church. And they were having a summer school program going on, and the kids in the neighborhood were going to go to it. So I went to this Sunday school program. And that was lots of fun. You got to make things and you got to sing songs about the Bible and stuff. But then after the Sunday school came to an end, we got taken into the chapel where the minister or the preacher talked to us. And he says, well, if you've had a really good experience and you feel a little closer to God, just come on up here to the front. Yeah, handed the Bible, and then it was, okay, now you have to become a member of the church. You got to learn all of the books of the Bible and attend Sunday school every day. I wasn't in favor of that idea at all, so I said no to the church. And I didn't go back to church until I was like 13. Sorry. During the meeting of the Good Morning group that used to meet here, which was held before the Sunday service back a number of years ago, and then we kind of revived it a little while by video when COVID was going on. But this particular morning, the discussion was about free will. And so we were talking about it, and the word surrender came up. Does that mean that you surrender to God? So we looked up the word surrender, and it was kind of interesting because it talked about surrender. Let's see if I can find my place here. Which we looked up in a dictionary, not on a cell phone, because we didn't have that feature back in those days. You had those little flip phone things if we had anything like that. So it means that you cease resistance to an enemy or an opponent and submit to their authority. Somehow that didn't really feel right in regards to giving over to God's will or surrendering to God's will. So we nixed that word. We didn't feel that really fit at all. We didn't see God as an enemy or an opponent. We saw God differently than that. One of the meanings that we came up with was more like it was to put yourself aside. So we looked up that. Aside means to come away from a central object off to one side or the other. So we looked at that as a possibility. And then we also looked at the meaning uh, to give way. What does that mean, to give way? It means to let something pass through you or around you. That felt a little more right. One of the understandings that I have been able to come to is that free will doesn't mean that if you touch something, that you will be punished by God, or if you do certain behaviors, you will be punished by God. Isn't God everything? Isn't God everything? Everything. Absolutely everything. Therefore, isn't He how you behave as well? Does He really care? Does it really care what we do down here? Don't we have free will to do what we want? So let's take a look at the word sin. What does that truthfully mean? Sin means to make a mistake. That's all it simply means. God forgives mistakes. Sometimes parents do too. And sometimes we give yes, yes. But yet, that teaching was very strong years back in church and still is in many churches today, this idea about sin. And it seemed like that anything that was enjoyable was sinful, right? I can remember my friend Carolyn had some grandparents that belonged to a very strict church that believed in sin big time. Whenever they came to visit, she was not allowed to put rollers in her hair and curl her hair. She was not allowed to wear makeup, and definitely she was not allowed to go to the school dance, nor did they play cards or any other kind of games. She wasn't a very happy person during that week that they spent with Grandma and Grandpa. Good versus evil seems to be the star player in the game of life on planet Earth today. This planet where duality exists is accepted as a normal, and this game has gone on for thousands of years here, with violence, cruelty, wars, corruption, greed, control, and enslavement. All of those things. It's time we break free of that. It really is. There is a universal law that kind of puts this in our face called the law of cause and effect, which means whatever you put out there into the world tends to come back to you. Thoughts, words, we know, we've taught this, create our reality. Jesus talked about this law. He said, you reap what you sow. Yeah. Which in metaphysical terminology means that whatever you put out through your thoughts and your words, it'll come back to you. Truthfully, one might choose to believe one has free will. However, it is to be understood that one needs to choose wisely, right? Do you think that's the truth? That we have to choose rightly, that that's really what it means? The choice being between the way of the no-no punishment or the fulfilling of the golden rule. And the golden rule is do unto others what you want them to do unto you. And you'll find that rule in many different, slightly worded forms throughout many religions in our world. And yet, that isn't really strongly taught quite like that. And of course, Master Jesus, being an excellent teacher, taught us to love one another. Yes, love one another. I believe this is perhaps the meaning of doing God's will. We are to love each other unconditionally. When humans can give up the need to play the game of no and punishment and come from their hearts with unconditional love for all of God's creation, we will fulfill that higher will, which doesn't involve surrender, but rather to give way to letting the Creator God's love pass through you unconditionally and to surround others in an uplifting embrace. I know that's a little heavy subject, but I felt it was one that we needed to look at, go back to, because many people really truly believe that they have to surrender to God's will. And if that will is love one another unconditionally, that's a little better than that no. You know, the father couldn't say no to the child, right? Okay, let's take a moment and go into meditation. I know we had kind of a long thing earlier, but I do have a meditation. So let's contemplate these words. Today we are calling out to ourselves and each other. We are ready to start something new. Let it be filled with more love, light, joy, loving kindness, and harmony than we have ever known. Let us come from our hearts in unconditional love for all humanity and all of creation, which was given to us with the command to oversee it with love in our hearts. Now, let us dissolve the energy of the old ways back into the cosmic soup to come forth again to fulfill our desires of this calling for more love, light, joy, loving kindness, and harmony, allowing us to bring peace to our earth, our world. Peace, peace within, peace without, peace on earth, the loving peace of the Creator, surrounding and touches all things on this earth. Peace in all things, peace on earth. So be it. Amen. Okay. All right. We're going to have our offering next. So if you want to take your gift to the home center in your hands. And now give it a little blessing. We just take and know that this gift that we're giving to the home center helps us with all of the needs we have here. And then it circulates because it's an energy. It circulates out into the community where it helps others with their needs. And it will circle back unto us 100-fold over. And so we say, thank you. Thank you. For those of you on your technical devices, homecenter.com. PayPal.me is /Home Center Salem is where you would want to send it. Now we're going to have Jennifer come back. Jennifer, come back. Yes, up and down, right?
Where were you?
She's going to give us the inspirational story and the closing prayer.
Thank you, Connie. That was great. That's great. So I wanted to share. A couple Sundays ago, I grabbed some of the Science of Mind little magazines from the library, and this one's from March 1996. So maybe some of you weren't born yet, but I've heard people say, like, I was born in 72, you're born in 72. Oh, the late 1900s. I'm like, so this is from the late 1900s. Yes.
It's okay, Jennifer. I was born in the mid 1900s.
The mid 1900s. Wonderful. So I'm going to read this story. It's called The Lost Suitcase. As we opened the trunk of our rented car, my husband and I looked at each other and said almost in the same breath, "Where's the suitcase?" We had lost my suitcase, the one with all my clothes for my West Coast author tour. I spent the next 2 days focusing all of my energy on recovering the lost suitcase, hoping I could make it reappear by sheer force of will. However, my suitcase didn't appear. Something told me, however, that all would be well. What was I to learn from losing my suitcase? Did I need to release old baggage or to create new open inner spaces in my life? Was the lost suitcase obviously taken by a stranger? A reminder that these things happen? I made a list of the many beautiful items of clothing missing, among them a bright red satin nightgown, the prize of a special Christmas shopping spree with my husband, a pair of outrageous paisley knee socks from a close friend, a wonderful long flowered dress I love to teach workshops in because it made me feel beautiful and graceful. I thought longevity. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought longingly of the green and lavender silk scarf, a poignant reminder of days spent together with a client in preparation of her transition. All of it gone. I realized that there is a strange power that comes from accepting events outside our control. I thought of how I struggled to contour each day to my liking, only to be frustrated when life presents me with the unexpected. But as Sue Bender suggests in her marvelous, says new book, but I doubt it's a new book, Everyday Sacred, when circumstances can't be changed, I can change. I've learned something from the suitcase that was never found. I learned something from the suitcase that was never found. That things never entirely belong to us, but are really the products of our memories, warmed by love and infused with special meaning. So rather than lament the loss of their gifts, I decided to celebrate the people who have entered my life and the blessings of their friendships. So an old but good one. That's a good one. And now I invite you to join me as we close this sacred this space in prayer. Creator, essence of all, we're in deep gratitude for your unconditional love, the continuous opportunities we have to learn, to grow, to expand, the message Reverend Connie shared with us today, and for this beautiful space to gather in. As we move about the rest of our day and step into the week ahead, we ask to be reminded that when circumstances can't be changed, we can change, knowing that we are fully supported by God, the universe, and our spiritual community. We ask for blessings upon those that are ill or in a state of suffering. May they be shrouded in love and light. And we say all these things in deep reverence and humility. Amen. So I get to do announcements today. Oh, I need to close the broadcast? Close the broadcast. Thank you for our friends that joined us online, and in the words of Dick,